Before the world had a name for analytics, you were asking the questions that would define it. And as the promise of technology evolved, so did we, listening, learning, building together. For half a century, SAS has been a committed partner to innovators across industry. Whether fighting fraud, finding cures, delivering better services, or exploring new possibilities all together, you've led the way. That's why we build software designed to earn your trust. Because certainty isn't optional, it's essential. From our statistical roots to today's focus on data and AI, one thing has never changed: the unwavering belief that technology should be shaped by problems worth solving, built alongside the people solving them. Which is why the commitment to innovation with purpose will always be our North Star. As we celebrate this milestone, we also know it's a building block for what comes next. So here's to the next 50 years of collaborating on what's possible, when the world has the power to know. Please welcome to the stage, Chief Marketing Officer, Jen Chase.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to SAS Innovate 2026. It is so great to be here with you in Texas and with our global live stream audience that is joining us from around the world. Hello to you all. This year marks a truly special milestone for SAS. In 2026, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary. 50 years. That's right. That's right. That's 50 years of innovation, 50 years of partnering with our customers, and 50 years on delivering what we have always believed in: the power to know. We're also celebrating 50 years of our user conference and the global community that has grown alongside us. This community has helped shape who we are. You've challenged us to think creatively, and you continue to inspire what's next. What began as a statistical research project at North Carolina State University to analyze agriculture has evolved into decades of working side by side with our customers, using advanced analytics to solve some of the world's most toughest challenges. And over the years, we have seen it all. From the early days of punch cards to the Y2K era, to the rise of the internet and digital transformation. And now, we are in one of the most powerful and consequential shifts of our time, the AI era. Through every one of these moments, SAS has evolved, but we have never lost sight of who we are. A steady hand for leaders across industries, helping them find clarity when the world feels uncertain. That's why tens of thousands of customers trust SAS today, including most of the Fortune 500 across more than 150 countries. And that trust wasn't built by chasing trends. It was built by showing up consistently, by staying grounded, and delivering outcomes that matter to you. Because the work that you do, the work that everyone in this room does, is too important. It's too critical. It affects our daily lives, and we simply can't afford to get it wrong. And while technology continues to change, one thing has not: our focus on people. The people behind the decisions and the lives those decisions affect. In fact, SAS is a part of your everyday, even if you don't always see it. When you get an alert from your credit card company about a possible fraudulent charge, that could be thanks to SAS. When you shop at one of your favorite stores, your personalized experience is probably because of SAS. And when you go to the doctor, you want to feel confident that the medication being prescribed is both safe and effective. SAS is the de facto standard for the US Food and Drug Administration, with nearly all medications approved in the US being proven with SAS's trusted analytics. So this isn't a technology story, this is a human one. Today, every organization we work with is navigating real complexity. They're grappling with economic uncertainty, evolving regulations, and a technology landscape that is changing faster than ever. And what customers tell us they need isn't more hype. They need AI they can trust from a partner who understands not just technology, but understands their industry, their data, their real challenges. So for today, and the next 50 years, our promise to you is to be the world's most trusted data and AI partner that powers the world's decisions through technology, industry expertise, and a commitment to responsible innovation. 50 years ago, SAS helped a researcher understand a crop yield. Today, we are the engine behind decisions that shape entire industries. The fraud that doesn't happen, the supply chain that doesn't break, the drug that gets approved, the customer who feels understood. The scale has changed, the stakes have certainly grown, but our belief at the center of it, that data, trusted and put to work, has never changed. That is our North Star. So to share more about our vision for the future, please join me in welcoming our Chief Technology Officer, Bryan Harris.
3 words. Will people matter? Isn't that what everyone's thinking about right now? We are in a crisis of confidence of human ingenuity. It's not a collapse in the belief that AI will matter. It's a collapse in the belief that people will matter. And just like us, you're thinking about it as you get ready for work in the morning. You're thinking about it when you drive home. And you're thinking about it when you're having dinner with your kids. So let me pose a question to you. Do you have the courage to stare down this moment and build the future you want for them? Because no one knows your business better than you. And the way you show up right now with AI will determine your brand value to the next generation. But I want to be clear, it's not about choosing between people and profit. After all, SAS is a great example of how you can invest in employees while remaining profitable for 50 years. It means building a bridge to the next generation of people, empowering them with AI so they can solve what was previously unsolvable. But we also have to ask, why do we even need AI? Well, we know that organizations are creating exponentially more data every day with no end in sight. This is the information landscape. However, it can really be overwhelming for the workforce to consume and make sense of this information. The difference in growth rates leads to the information overload that fuels confusion, fatigue, and opportunity. So the question becomes, how do we close this information gap? Well, the answer has always been we empower people with technology to scale human observation and decision-making. Since the beginning, SAS has been pioneering technology breakthroughs to help you close the information gap, gain a competitive advantage. Let's look back at the history of the last 50 years of all the innovation we've done. It all started with the SAS programming language. It was the first capability we built to turn data into decisions. And then from there, as computing became more pervasive, we created a multi-vendor architecture to make sure SAS could run anywhere you needed it to. And then we built out these incredible industry solutions as people worked more and more with analytics in their respective industries. It helped them scale domain knowledge and get faster time to value. Then we were way ahead in building out capabilities for machine learning, which set the foundation for capabilities in deep learning. Then as the cloud matured, we built a multi-cloud architecture to ensure our software could run on any cloud of choice, inclusive of your on-prem environments. And recently, we developed a synthetic data generator to build differentiated models when real data is limited or doesn't exist at all. For 50 years, we have been in the relentless pursuit of technological breakthroughs to give you the power to know. And that brings us to this moment with AI. For the first time, AI has the potential to bend the curve and close the information gap. But this requires you to trust the results. Specifically, it requires you to trust the results from agentic AI. Now let's talk about this. Every agentic AI workflow can be comprised of both deterministic and non-deterministic elements. A deterministic approach follows a fixed path of predefined rules and logic. Given the same input, it produces the same output every time. Let's go through an example. Let's say you're a loan underwriter who's automating a credit policy. The person's income is greater than $80,000. Their debt-to-loan ratio or debt-to-income ratio is less than 35%, and their credit score is greater than 720. That loan is approved every time. Every applicant that has the same criteria is approved every time. Now, let's compare that to a non-deterministic approach that follows an adaptive path using large language models, but it can produce different outcomes from the same input. It's sensitive to the context it is given. For example, think of a financial crimes team that is prioritizing anti-money laundering alerts with AI. The agent analyzes income and to include things like customer profiles, transaction descriptions, previous cases, and investigator notes. The large language model-based agent produces a recommended disposition and explanation. But because the large language model is probabilistic, with no fixed rules or logic, 3 different runs can produce 3 different outputs. It might recommend that it's a low-risk alert, or it might set it as a high-risk alert. Or because of subtlety in the context, it might recommend we actually close the alert. There's not enough risk even to be concerned about. If the team is working on incorrectly prioritized alerts, the bank is exposed to increased risk. And to overcome this, you must add guardrails to ensure accuracy and prevent compound error at scale. Another part about agentic AI I want you to know about is how trust shifts. Determinism and non-determinism can be in agentic AIs, but the way they manifest in individual and enterprise use cases is different. And as a result, trust can't be scaled the same way. For individual use, the goal of agentic AI is typically like things like coding, research, analysis, and brainstorming. But when non-deterministic LLMs are present, the human must look for errors and really course correct as needed. That means, though, the trust ultimately sits with the individual. Now, when you move to the enterprise, agentic AI is all about breaking down data and organizational silos to automate business workflows. Therefore, trust shifts from the individual to the accuracy and repeatability of the process itself. However, because non-deterministic large language models are there, you must integrate into the agentic AI workflow guardrails to ensure accuracy and prevent compound error at scale. Now, to get more into the details of this, I want to illustrate how this is being done in AI-assisted software development. And this is exactly what SAS is doing right now inside our organization. We break this down into 4 phases: design, execute, verify, and validate. Let's start with the design phase. In the design phase, human value shifts from typically writing code to the new discipline of context engineering. This requires strong domain expertise to define the functional experience, the test objectives, and overall the technical requirements. Second, AI agents can develop test suites to automatically verify and validate. Now, let me kind of define these very important phases. First, verification confirms that the software meets the technical specifications of the design. And validation really makes sure that the software meets the business objectives of the organization. The verification and validation phases are absolutely critical for guardrails to ensure accuracy and to make sure we have repeatability of AI-generated code. Finally, the agent uses the context from the design specs and the testing suites to generate code, and the entire human-in-the-loop process iterates until the verification and validation phases pass. That's how it works, folks. But guess what? You can apply this same approach to industry use cases. And I want to start with an example in life sciences. Imagine a clinical trial for a new cancer therapy. Behind that trial is a protocol that defines really why the trial is being conducted, what will be tested, who can participate, and how will the study be conducted to ensure regulatory requirements are met. Everyone in the industry knows that AI provides a huge opportunity to improve the efficiency and accuracy of clinical trials. Let's apply this repeatable blueprint with AI. First, in the design phase, we leverage AI to read documents with protocols and operating procedures and data. AI agents then parse those documents, extract requirements, and map them to regulatory standards. Digitizing the protocol alone improves the ability to match the right patients with the right therapies. All of this results in better context engineering that drives the execution phase of the remaining things we have to work on. In the execution phase, raw clinical data is arriving into the organization, and there's a massive amount of this data, and it's being transformed into regulatory standards. Double programming analyzes the trial data to produce statistical results. This is achieved by combining human and AI programming that derives the same data with automated comparisons to find any discrepancies. The result is a faster and more consistent execution without compromising regulatory compliance. From there, agents work in parallel to check protocol adherence, CDISC compliance, data quality, and security. This verification testing is completed in hours versus weeks. Finally, AI compiles the clinical submission report and validates for accuracy and completeness. And the result is a clinical trial submission that runs in weeks rather than months. Now, imagine what could happen without the verification and validation phases. A protocol requirement is misinterpreted, or a submission looks complete, but regulators find some inconsistencies. The clinical trial comes to a halt. Data has to be reanalyzed, patients wait longer, costs increase, and trust erodes. In clinical trials, verification and validation aren't just technical details. They are the difference between getting a therapy to market or it being delayed when patients can't afford to wait. And I have to say that SAS is delivering these agentic AI outcomes today that help companies get life-saving drugs to market faster. But you might ask, what makes our approach with agentic AI unique? Well, for us, it comes down to intelligent decisioning on SAS Viya. It can automate any business problem on any cloud with unparalleled governance. You can carefully design sophisticated and directed, controlled agentic workflows. Those workflows then can deploy a set of intelligent agents. Some of those agents can orchestrate the entire workflow, and other agents are there to validate and verify answers. And the result are trusted business outcomes. With intelligent decisioning, we uniquely give you the right balance of control, creativity, and governance to build trusted agentic AI workflows. Now, a lot of companies talk about agentic AI in a silo, but the reality is it's just one capability in the enterprise. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of the technologies we talk about are starting to converge, and they're creating even larger business opportunities for your organizations. For example, machine learning predicts outcomes. Generative AI helps us investigate, reason, and explain. Agentic AI allows systems to plan and act and execute across complex workflows. Computer vision creates new signals to detect patterns. And synthetic data safely explores scenarios that are either rare, risky, or haven't even happened yet. And optimization chooses the best outcome from everything above. And when these capabilities come together, you don't just get better models, you get a digital twin. A living replica of everything you can build for your organization to optimize your business. And last year, we partnered with Epic Games and Georgia Pacific to create photorealistic digital twins. And we blew people's minds. Our first project was to simulate Georgia Pacific's manufacturing facility and optimize vehicle sizes and routes. The digital twin sparked the imagination of businesses worldwide. We are actively scaling the art of the possible across every industry. Which brings us to our current work that we're doing right now with Sterile Central. They are the largest medical sterilization provider in Denmark. I want you to picture a hospital operating room. The surgical team is assembled and ready. The patient is already under anesthesia. Maybe it's your wife undergoing a C-section, or maybe it's your father scheduled for heart bypass. The procedure is about to start, but something is wrong. Some medical instruments are missing, and others are contaminated. The entire surgery grinds to a halt, not because of a skill or knowledge, but because miles away, a sterilization process broke down. This is the part of healthcare that most people never see, but it's the part where everything begins. Sterile Central's goal is to make sure this terrifying moment never happens in the operating room. They are the invisible backbone of surgical care, ensuring that every scalpel, clamp, and instrument is sterile and safe. But here's the challenge. Sterilization centers are incredibly complex ecosystems. Tools move through dozens of steps like washing, drying, packaging, and shipping. That means thousands of instruments, hundreds of cycles every single day. And Sterile Central knew that every bottleneck or delay could have significant impacts to hospital operations, or even worse, to human lives. To avoid that risk, they needed a better way to see, understand, and optimize their entire workflow and operations. So they came to SAS. Together, we built an amazing digital twin of their Copenhagen facility, a living ecosystem of every room, machine, and workflow. And as you can see, the visuals are stunning. But the twin also gives Sterile Central the ability to explore and test any scenario they can imagine, and it's already sparking ideas around innovation and improvement. Let me share two examples. First, we ran a scenario-based optimizations across their entire workflow, and Sterile Central noticed that medical trays were getting stuck in what's called a buffer lift, which lines up the trays for cleaning. This created a bottleneck in the whole system. But the digital twin found that the real slowdowns were further downstream in the process. The lift just looked constrained because it's in the central distribution point of the whole flow. And that insight changed everything. So we recommended targeted adjustments, which resolved the bottleneck and improved operations. But then with the same digital twin, because of how incredibly high fidelity the graphics are, We were able to train a computer vision model that checks if workers are wearing the protective gear. Look at the detail on the gown. We call this new approach synthetic vision because the model is trained entirely on synthetic data created with the digital twin. If a worker puts a glove or mask on incorrectly, they can accidentally contaminate the clean tools. The left side's the real facility, the right side is the digital twin. You can't tell the difference. That's how good our digital twin is, and that's how incredible our computer vision models are. Now, all of these improvements ultimately mean that doctors get the tools they need, surgeries start on time, and patients get the care that they expect. For SAS, it's not about just helping our customers, it's helping our customers help their customers. And if Sterile Central can reinvent its operations with a digital twin, imagine what you can do in your organization to improve your operations. Now, you've seen how both manufacturing and healthcare companies can benefit from digital twins, but that's only the beginning. In energy and power, we are training drones with computer vision to spot power line failures before they happen. What does that mean? That means we can prevent power outages and stop wildfires. In oil and gas, we are creating digital replicas of deep sea rigs to detect unsafe conditions like gas leaks. That means we can keep workers safe and prevent expensive repairs. The digital twin becomes the ultimate proving ground for your what-if questions and gives your business a decision advantage. And we are scaling this impact across every industry in which we operate in. Now, I would love to talk more about this on main stage, but we can continue the conversation at the Spotlight stage in the Innovation Hub. So please check this out. Now, everything I just talked about today is powered by our comprehensive portfolio, SAS Viya. Our platform provides every capability that customers need to innovate and create intelligence that allows them to have a competitive advantage. Our solutions integrate trusted domain expertise and domain intelligence directly into your customer workflows. And whether you need applications, agents, or models, SAS Viya delivers a consistent decision advantage. However, we know the pace of change and complexity of today's world demands a new capability: digital twins. As you continue to navigate disruption, our digital twins empower you to simulate, understand, and move first. And finally, our governance software ensures trusted and transparent outcomes across the entire enterprise. And over the next 2 days, you'll see SAS Viya deliver on every one of these problems at scale and in the real world. Now, let me close by coming back to where we started. Will people matter? Of course we will. In fact, we have never been more important than we are right now. From the very beginning, human ingenuity has been the engine behind every breakthrough that has changed the world. It starts with the printing press, with scaled knowledge. Transportation, scaled movement. The mobile phone, scaled connectivity. The internet, scaled information and commerce. The cloud, scaled data and computation. And social media, scaled influence. And now, AI will scale human observation and decision-making. There's no question that this is a pivotal moment, but it's just a moment. And we can't afford to stop here. Why? Because the biggest problems are still in front of us. We still need to find cures for cancer, Alzheimer's, and heart disease. We still need to stabilize our climate and our oceans. We still need to improve access to housing and healthcare, and we still need to stop fraud. The problems and the list of these problems are endless. But we won't solve these problems by having small-minded, misguided debates about AI and the role of humans. We have to think bigger. And there is a name for this kind of shift in perspective. It's called the overview effect. In 1987, Frank White coined this phrase to describe how astronauts feel when they travel to space and they look back at Earth. And in 2026, Artemis II brought this entire effect back to life. Astronaut Victor Garber said, "We want everybody to be a part of this mission." So let's join them. Let's start here at the Gaylord Hotel and travel out to space. From this distance, something profound happens. We don't see borders. We don't see religions. We don't see political lines. We see one planet and one shared humanity. That is the perspective we need to have in this moment with AI. Because every breakthrough technology follows the same arc. It solves a problem, it reshapes society, and eventually it fades into the background of everyday life. Yesterday it was the internet, and today it's AI. And tomorrow, I can assure you, it will be something else. But the only thing that outlasts every innovation is people. Thank you. Now, let's hear from someone who has always valued people, SAS's CEO, Dr. Jim Goodnight.
Hi, Dr. Goodnight, and so great for you to take the time to actually have this conversation. I really appreciate it. You know, any company that's been in business for 50 years is an incredible milestone, but especially for a technology company, at what point do you kind of build the language we know of as the SAS programming language today?
Well, Jim Barr actually started SAS, and I really enjoyed the work that he did on the data step.
Yeah.
Because it was a much more computational than some of my data transformation routines. Most of my stuff I did interpreted stuff, and his was compiled.
Okay.
So I really liked that, and so I decided to begin to merge a lot of the stuff I've been working on into SAS.
Oh, okay.
So he did the data step part, and I was in charge of writing procedures.
The language is incredibly succinct, right? And as a result, it makes it very approachable for people who are maybe not as deeply entrenched in the algorithms to use it. And that's what's been its enduring value for so long in the market. So what drives you towards then incorporating SAS in 1976?
A fellow named Julian Horowitz in 1975 had us up into to Abbott Labs to meet with the Abbott Labs user groups. And so we went up and talked to them, showed what we were working on. And he decided that this would be a good time to begin a user group meeting that was open to everybody. So he promoted a meeting of SAS users down in Kissimmee, Florida. And we went down, and there were about 350 people there.
Wow.
And we were just amazed at how many people had showed up to go to our user meeting. And we talked about everything we were working on, and we came back from that quite pumped up with what we had.
It's amazing.
And decided that we should move out of the university and create our own private company. And that's what we did.
Let's talk about some really cool innovations. And I do want to dive deeper into one that I know you and I often talk about because it has this historical rhyming to it. I'll talk about it. I know you're into history as well. You've seen everything from punch cards all the way to quantum computers. But there's one area that I thought was really, really a lot of foresight for you and SAS, and I think it was in the early 80s, where as computers became more diverse in their platforms, right, and more ubiquitous in society, the challenge was for SAS was how do we make sure SAS can run on all of these different computers? And so you guys pioneered something called the multi-vendor architecture, MVA for short, we call it internally. Which was a big rewrite for the software, right? So it was a big effort. Can you talk a little bit about that really important innovation? And by the way, it was 10 years earlier than this same type of innovation that happened, say, with Java, where it was about write once, run anywhere. So can you share a little bit of that?
We were mainly on mainframes, and all of our customers were on mainframes. And we had our own computer, IBM 370 model 168, that cost about 1.6 million, as I recall. And it executed 3 million instructions a second, 3 MIPS.
Wow.
So that's
a lot back then, right?
That was a lot back then. Well, when I started on the 1620, I thought that was a lot. It did 300
wow.
a minute. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
So our users were, all mainframe users. But we started getting requests that we would run on mini computers.
Okay.
In 1978, Digital Equipment sold their first VAX computer to customers. And so by early 80s, we were getting more and more requests to run on these mini computers. We first converted SAS to run on the VAX, and as these other computers came out, and then of course the IBM came out with a PC, and I think it was 81, September or so of 81, and we started getting customers asking us to run on the PC, and that was incredibly difficult because it was only a 16-bit machine.
Yeah, so everything had to be, the efficiency you had to put into this, right, to deal with the limited bits is tough.
So as we're looking at all these different, we can't rewrite SAS every time a new computer comes on. It's way too big to do that. So we said, look, let's write a layer that sits on top of the operating system, and no one's allowed to talk to the operating system. You can only talk to the layer that sits above the operating system.
The abstraction layer above
the abstraction layer.
Yeah.
So that's what we did, and so we rewrote everything.
Connect the dots historically onto some of the stuff that I think have still real big implications today. A couple of years ago, we did a Futurum study that talked about the performance of our analytics. And we found that when we compared ourselves to some open source alternatives as well as some commercial companies in that mix, our analytics and modeling and techniques and all that were on average 30 times faster. If you look at some of the competitive comparisons to the commercial vendor, we tested against that. We were, I think, 49 times faster. So the reason I say this is because the decision you made to go to C was a hugely important decision. And the work you did, the work you did on that C code is part of the reason why today we see an average of 30 times performance gains on our software doing analytical routines. Right. So I just want everyone to hear this because it's an amazing vision for you to have in 1985 to do this that still pays off dividends today in our software for our customers. It's amazing. And people are blown away. We had a consumer packaging goods company around a forecast. It took them 13 hours. We did it in, I think, 12 minutes. And it's because of the innovation that you've done back in the day, and we still continue to evolve it. So thank you for that work.
Well, we have a group of people whose sole job is to make SAS faster.
Yes.
And they try to figure out what it takes to make things faster. And I guess it's been about 20 years ago, we went over to using multiple cores.
Yes.
We had a banker in Singapore that was taking 18 hours to run their value at risk jobs. And so we brought that problem back and worked on it and spread it out over many different machines and got that down to 15 minutes.
This whole MVA strategy is now rhyming again for us in a couple ways. One is we built a multi-cloud architecture for VIA, which runs all the SAS 9 code in the cloud in a cloud-native form, but we compile it once and we map it into the cloud providers, each of the cloud providers as needed for that. And then now, when we're doing work on quantum, we're actually looking at all of the quantum simulators, and we're building a virtualization layer against the simulators to make sure that a user in SAS, writing SAS code, or even in Python eventually too, they can just use this abstraction layer to interact with CPU, GPU, or even in QPU eventually as quantum computers evolve. So again, your architectural design patterns you've created back in the 80s, we see that as a reflection of what's happening right now again. So good. Very cool.
Very good.
All right, so one last thing. Recently, we saw a memo that you sent to SAS employees in 1985. And this memo had a picture of the org chart, and it put the users at the top of SAS's org chart. Additionally, it put you, the CEO, at the bottom of the org chart, and the rest of the company was in the middle. And I got to tell you, this was profound for us to see it. I mean, because what it says is you were there to support the employees and give them the environment they need to flourish. But the employees' number one priority are the users and the customers. And I just want you to know how profound that has been for us as a company. I mean, you know it, you've lived it from the success of the company, but it speaks a lot now, today, in this moment with AI as well. You know, growing up, my father worked in nuclear. He was disrupted a lot in his employment because projects were overcommitted, underdelivered a lot of times, and regardless of his quality of product, of his work, there was a lot of layoffs that we experienced as a family. And it was a very, very traumatic thing that we felt throughout most of my entire childhood and my early adulthood. So when I first saw you on 60 Minutes, I saw you in an interview, and when you said that my people are my greatest assets, they leave, and my job is to make sure they come back every day, it was speaking directly to me. So it was an amazing experience for me, and I'll never forget it. And obviously, it's crazy right now for me to be sitting here to think about that moment, watching you on TV at 60 Minutes, and knowing how you care about people first. You love being an employer and enabling people to be their best. Your actions as a leader you're a humble guy. They're profound. You have created a culture that connects companies to communities, which is very, very important. And on behalf of myself and all of us who are watching this, I just want to say thank you.
Well, you're certainly welcome.
Well, as you know, too, we also been working on a documentary that showcases the incredible arc and history of SAS. And so this will be available for everyone to watch this week at SAS Innovate. So we're all excited to watch it together and enjoy the entire story of this amazing company and your amazing leadership. So thank you.
Please welcome Vice President of AI Ethics, Governance, and Social Impact, Reggie Townsend.
Woo! What's up, SAS Innovate? Look, I'm going to talk to you like friends here for a second. I think that there are some things worth preserving. One of them is culture. You see, culture gives us vocabulary. It gives us identity. It gives us stories to tell and a sense of belonging. The other thing is systems, because systems preserve culture. Systems, they encode our beliefs and values in repeatable and automated forms. And the thing is, culture and systems, they strengthen one another. Culture creates systems to maintain cultural norms. And then systems, they reinforce those norms. But if we're not careful, they'll also reshape the culture. That's what the smart people call a recursive relationship. because the system that's designed for culture begins to alter culture, you see? Which begs a couple of questions. At what point does a system stop reflecting culture and start to produce it? And who's creating the systems that are producing the culture? Now, I think these are precisely the questions that we're feeling today. Think about it. We've got millions of frictionless, automated decisions being made daily with AI. A hiring manager defers to an algorithmic score because it feels more objective. Or a content moderator who only sees the content for which the system was coded to flag. Research papers, news articles, even speeches, all the result of a prompt producing a result to be delivered. Now, I could cite others, but the pattern would hold. AI systems designed to scale human judgment are gradually displacing human judgment. I'm going to say something bold. We have to preserve human judgment if we want to preserve human culture. Now, look, AI is great for optimizing and enhancing creativity. It's even a fantastic thought partner. But judgment? Judgment is great for variability when there are no clear rights and wrongs. When consequential decisions have to be made, when there's ambiguity and competing values, our judgment is irreplaceable, y'all. And this is precisely why governance exists. You see, because governance is a system, right? Governance is a system for scaling our judgment and by default, preserving our culture. And I think in this moment, when our culture could be reshaped by systems we don't own and may not choose to fully embrace, if we're honest, governance is absolutely essential. But it's got to be useful, right? It has to feel convenient. And it can't feel like the path of most resistance. It can't be seen as a drag on innovation. In fact, I think the real opportunity here is to accelerate innovation while also scaling our judgment, but our good judgment. In all the time that I've spent focused on AI governance, I've heard one thing loud and clear. Leaders want the best of AI without losing control of what matters most. And there are 3 points of tension that we're facing. The first is moral, right? We need AI aligned to what we believe and value the most. And then operationally, we need the efficiency and productivity that AI has to offer without losing clarity and consistency. And then certainly from a financial perspective, we need to capture the value of AI without creating unmanageable risk. Now, these are often competing priorities. They're all important, they're all layered, and they all require the good judgment of competent leaders. And importantly, they all prove that AI governance is contextual. This is not purely a technical exercise. You see? What helps an employee move faster doesn't always translate to value for the enterprise, but the risk does. See, governance, it helps us to clarify both that risk and that potential value. But to do so, use cases have to lead. Now, let me clarify something. When I say use case, what I mean is a specific business implementation of AI. I'm not talking about a model that's just sitting in isolation or an individual who needs to, like, say, summarize a document. I'm talking about using AI to impact the needs of the business. And we need to track that impact. And this is where tools become really important. Leaders need tools that give visibility. We need to know what's deployed, where it runs, how much it costs, if it's drifting outside of its intended purpose, and who's accountable. Now, let's be clear, this isn't new, right? Governance practices have existed for years, especially in regulated industries, and SAS has actually helped scale good judgment in those industries for a long time. And that's why we provide tools like our AI governance manager to banks. That's why we provide tools like our governance and compliance manager to auditors and compliance officers. See, we recognize that governance occurs at different levels in an organization. The C-suite has different needs than, say, a data scientist, as an example. And that's why we have a portfolio approach when it comes to governance. It's also why we embed governance directly into VIA, because everything built on our platform should inherit the ability to scale good judgment from the start. Now, to meet this moment, we're going further. Our data and AI impact report that we put together with IDC found that 46% of companies worldwide are experiencing the trust dilemma, and they're leaving 50% of their AI potential completely untapped, y'all. That's why we decided that we're going to make being responsible irresistible. We designed something that's convenient, something that's useful, intuitive, and absolutely beautiful. So let me introduce you to our new product. We call it SAS AI Navigator. It's a software as a service, provides visibility into the AI inventory throughout an enterprise. And importantly, it orients around the use case that I talked about a little while ago. It helps us know how we're doing. And that extends to the systems, the models, the agents that all power those use cases, as well as the policies that are associated with them. So I want you all to see what this looks like in practice, like I would with any other group of friends. And for that, I have asked Christy Boyd to come join me on stage. What's going on, Christy?
Good morning.
All right, so Christy, y'all, is one of the leaders who is working on AI Navigator. She's been a part of this effort from the very first phone call when I said, hey, I got an idea. So there is no better person to help launch this product.
Thank you for having me, and good morning, everybody.
Well, let's step into a scene, right? We're going to demo this product for you. So
Sure.
I've been talking, Christy, about AI governance, but only in the abstract. So we want to give them a practical example, right? So let's say my company is using AI. We've got it used in a variety of ways. We've got third-party vendors, we're doing stuff in-house, and we're using this open source model that we call open source LLM.
Sure,
All right,
yeah.
all right. So in this example, we just learned that the model, the data for the model has been poisoned, right? And I know the model is authorized for use, but I don't know what's up right now. So I need to know, how am I doing? What can I do?
So that's exactly the kind of problem that SAS AI Navigator is designed to solve. It's designed for folks like you, Reggie, who need to make a quick, informed decision and then be able to move on with your day.
I like that.
Let me show you the homepage. This page provides an at-a-glance answer to how are we doing in terms of AI governance. Now, it looks like one of our data scientists has already flagged the model poisoning. So we can see our open source LLM
Open source, yep.
showing up in the governance risk section.
Got it.
What I want to flag is that anybody with the right permissions in our organization can also see this risk.
Okay, so I'm not a bottleneck.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Somebody else can help with this resolution.
Okay.
Now, from what I can see, open source LLM is linked to two different deployed use cases.
Okay.
Something called a RFP, RFI draft assistance, and an internal meeting summarization tool.
Got it.
Now, judging by the names, I think it's safe to say that RFP is probably the enterprise use case.
That's fair.
And the meeting summarization is more individual productivity, right?
Yep.
Now, since we're investigating a known data model poisoning, let's focus on the enterprise use case.
Okay.
To your point earlier, Reggie, the use case is really the primary entity in AI Navigator. It represents the specific business implementation of AI. Here we can see the details, the description, the status, et cetera. The assessments and approvals, everything is tied to the use case. Specifically, I can see that there's a number of policies applied to our RFP use case, including the third-party vendor policy and the EU AI Act.
Okay, so I want to pause you on that for a second, because
Okay.
August is coming up. I got to get ready for the EU AI Act.
True.
Can I use that description as my intended use statement?
You could. We actually do have an intended use field that you can leverage for that instead.
Okay.
I would probably recommend that you consider the assessments for anything regulation-specific or regulatory. Now, granted, I'm not a lawyer, right?
But you play one on TV.
I tend to, exactly. So, always consult with your corporate counsel on legal matters. But on the assessments tab, we can see all of the questions and answers that are applied to our use case.
Yep.
It looks like in this case, our compliance team is on it. They have previously documented how to mitigate situations like ours today. With this information, we can reach out to the asset owner and ask them to kick off the incident response.
Okay, so I want you to pause right now with
Okay.
the scene, and I'm gonna
Okay.
step out and talk to my friends if that's okay. All right, so y'all remember there was 2 use cases, right? We followed the enterprise use case because there was due diligence associated with it. And of course, in a real data poisoning situation, we wanna remediate both use cases, we get that. If we looked at the individual use case, that meeting summarization one, we'd see that there are different policies and standards applied to that particular use case. And that's by design, because each use case carries with it different risk, right? We need to be able to make that risk distinguishable. We need to be able to make it visible and defensible. So in a sense where we've got governance requirements, we've got to make sure that we're not applying the same governance to both types of use cases that have different risks. So in the one case, for the enterprise use case, we need all of that due diligence, but it would be really inconvenient for the other use case had we put all of that governance burden on it. So let's get back to our scene, Christy.
Okay.
I want to know if my team is going to be stuck. Can we still respond to RFPs or not?
Let's go to the asset inventory to find out.
Okay.
Now, as you might expect, the asset inventory shows all of our assets, the models, the agents, the use cases, everything shows up here on this page. We'll click into the RFP use case in question to see what we can see. Right away, I can tell that open source LLM is still prohibited, as expected, but it looks like there is another agent that's authorized for use for this use case, something called Copilot.
That Copilot one. Okay, I got you.
So I'm curious about the Copilot. You're
I
curious?
am too. Yeah, let's do it.
You all curious? Yes, thank you. Audience participation. So we'll explore it. This is the agent detail page. Right away, I can tell there's no open alerts. Their authorizations are all on track. But for an agent, there's some additional information that we want to know.
That makes sense.
We might want to know things like the autonomy level, the guardrails that are applied to this agent, skills that the agent is designed to have, and limitations that we know the agent has from the get-go.
Yep.
We might want to be able to link some technical documentation, like a model card, or maybe financial records, compliance reports, other documents that support our case. This comprehensive information is essential for governing AI agents, and it can all be linked here in AI Navigator.
That's awesome.
Now, the Asset Relationship tab is probably my favorite, so I'm going to show it to you really quickly.
Okay.
It shows you all of the relationships that your agent or model has, the models that support the agent, the use cases that it's linked to, the whole ecosystem.
Okay, it's pretty.
Isn't it? Now, overall, it looks like Copilot is a great fit for us. There's, like I said, assessments are completed, there's no alerts, documentation is in order. So I'm going to flag it as the champion for RFP use case.
Okay, makes sense.
All right, Reggie, I think the team is good to go. They can keep churning out those RFPs with the help of an authorized AI agent.
That is wonderful. Thank you. So let's summarize this for our friends. We've identified the points of impact. We've confirmed the remediation necessary. We've ensured that the asset owners have visibility into the incident.
Yep.
And we also discovered that there's an alternative for responding to RFPs.
In about 5 minutes or so, yes.
All in 5. I love that part. So thanks to AI Navigator, we've designed it for folks like me who need to make quick decisions and move on about the day. All right, so Christy, for folks who want to spend more than 5 minutes, where can they find you?
If you want to spend more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, come find us at the Innovation Hub right after this at the AI Navigator booth. And I want to shout out tomorrow, 11 o'clock, we're going to have a very special spotlight session ran by the product manager, Ali Deloney, and our partners at Protiviti. We're going to look under the hood of AI Navigator. So come join us, be there.
Awesome. Thank you, Christy. Appreciate you.
Thank you all.
Yeah. All right, friends, as you can see, this isn't about slowing people down because engagement is not the goal. Exercising good judgment is. Which brings us back to where we began. Beliefs and values embedded in systems. Applying judgment, but good judgment, in systemic forms. But you might ask, for what purpose? To what end? Well, as we might say it in my community, I think we should do it for the culture. We should have governance for the culture. We should apply judgment, but good judgment, for the culture. Because we don't live inside of technologies and systems. We live inside the stories of culture, stories that shape how we see the world, stories that help us pursue what's possible. And look, some of these stories about AI, they excite us, but some of them scare us, and quite frankly, some of them just confuse the hell out of us. But today we have a chance to tell a different story, a story of innovation and good judgment. And friends, that's not a story of idealism. It's one of human-centered design and leadership. And that's the story of SAS and our next 50 years.
Please welcome Senior Vice President, Global Engineering, Jared Peterson.
Wow. Good morning, everybody. You know, it's an honor to get to follow Dr. Goodnight, Bryan, and Reggie as I seek to bring to life many of the concepts that they've been talking about earlier. You know, Bryan, he mentioned the overview effect and how people matter now more than ever. And then Reggie, he narrowed the scope a little bit for us as he talked about AI governance. And now I'm going to bring us down to a personal level. And I'm going to talk about you, because you are the engines behind human ingenuity. Now, this morning, we're not only going to show you things that you couldn't do before, we're going to show you things that you couldn't have imagined doing before. This session is for developers, data scientists, data engineers, business analysts, decision makers, the people that make up this incredible community that builds the intelligence that sits behind everything else. To give you some background, I lead our global engineering teams, which means that I'm responsible for a lot of the innovation that comes out of SAS. But I'm also a dad to 4 kids. Now, I'll give you one guess which job is more challenging. Now, to be fair, I think my kids would say that being raised by a technology dad has its own fair share of challenges. You know, technology dads, we have our own unique brand. I like to think that we're efficient and innovative, while our kids might say we're a little obsessive. You know, for example, why can't you use dashboards to track chores? Or why can't you use analytics to predict when the next meltdown is likely to spike? You know, we train our kids at an early age to be strong and independent and to troubleshoot the PlayStation yourself. And please, just use Google Maps instead of always asking me constantly, are we there yet? And when our kids, when they complain, we like to say things, you know, thank you so much for that feedback. I'm going to put that on the list for our next retrospective and backlog grooming meeting. But now I want you to imagine a technology dad that works at SAS. You know, I tell my kids all the time, SAS is part of the very fabric of society. In fact, one year, we were traveling to a new city. We got off a subway. We rode the escalator up to a city street. And we found ourselves, we were surrounded by buildings and businesses in every direction. And I mentioned to my kid that SAS likely plays a role in all of them. Now, many of you in the audience, you actually understand this because you work at many of those businesses. But I thought it would actually be fun this morning for us to take a bit of a field trip to prove this out together. So I want you to forget for a moment that you're sitting in this big, dark room in this beautiful conference center in the middle of Texas. Instead, we've all just gotten off that subway, and we're all riding that escalator up to a city street. Now, let's all try to stay together. This is a really, really big group, but don't worry if you get lost. I have you all air tagged. Remember, technology dad. Now, I want you to stop, and I want you to look around at all of these buildings and businesses in every direction. And all of those businesses are full of people that use SAS. Now, traveling with a big group like this is really expensive. So we're going to need to visit a bank. Now, as we walk into the bank, we could spend some time in the lobby, we could get some cash, but actually, I want you to think about the people that are working behind the scenes to make all of this possible, the data scientists, the developers. Now, everything that you're about to see, we're about to show you, I want you to remember it applies well beyond banking. So I want you to think about how you could use these things in your own organizations. Okay, let's talk a moment about fraud modeling. Now, the obvious problem with fraud data is that instances of not fraud show up a lot more frequently than instances of fraud. This is what we call the classic class imbalance problem. And actually, to build models that perform in the real world, you need more balanced data. And the best way to create that data is to actually create it ourselves using synthetic data generation. But that's actually only part of the process. Once you have a model, you need to be able to apply business rules and regulatory constraints so that you can make a decision. Now, let's actually see all of this in action. And I can't think of a better person to show it to you than my longtime colleague, collaborator, and friend, Susan Haller, Senior Director of the Analytics Lifecycle. Susan, come on out. Susan, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jared. To set the stage, why don't we start like any team may if they were tasked with predicting which of their transactions were fraudulent. And we'll do that with an exploratory model in SAS Model Studio.
All right, let's do it.
Let's take a look. So we're in SAS Model Studio. We're using that original transactional data. Now in this data, only 1.2% of my observations are actually fraudulent.
Okay.
So 98% of my data is non-fraud. We're running a typical modeling tournament here, trying different data pre-processing steps, different machine learning algorithms to determine what performs best. And we can see based on our validation KS statistic, we've chosen our forest model, a KS statistic of 0.83. Now that KS statistic helps us determine how well our model is differentiating fraud from non-fraud. And on paper, we seem to be doing a pretty good job. But let's take a look at our event classification matrix. And this is where the problem becomes clear. At that 0.5 cutoff, my model is incorrectly classifying over 96% of my fraudulent cases to be non-fraud. That means less than 4% of my fraud cases, those cases that I truly care about, are correctly classified. And this is a common problem with rare event data. You mentioned earlier, we know that fraud is rare, and we can see that this model is biased towards that majority class because that's what our data is dominated by. And the result, we're missing more fraud, which is frustrating to both the analyst and our customers.
Yeah, so Susan, I think what you're saying is actually kind of on the surface, on paper, the model looks okay, but actually you can't trust the results because of that class imbalance problem we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. And so instead of trying to squeeze a better model out of our data, let's try to improve the data itself, specifically those rare event cases. And this is what SAS DataMaker is built for. It's our synthetic data generation tool that we released last December, available now in the Microsoft Marketplace. At a very high level, DataMaker is learning patterns from that original data, creating new synthetic rows while at the same time preserving the statistical characteristics that we care about. So let's take a look at DataMaker.
Sounds good.
So I'm in the DataMaker product, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the Innovate 2026 project. Here we've gone ahead and trained a SMOTE model, which is suitable for this imbalanced data problem. And we can see that that model has done a pretty good job retaining those statistical characteristics. Here we're looking at that fraud target variable. So we're going to go ahead and generate some new rows. Now, new to SAS DataMaker and especially powerful for fraud is condition-based generation. So now we're not only able to generate more rows, we're able to generate more of the right row. So I'm specifying my target variable to be fraud, and then I'm going to select my level of interest to be 1. And this is going to result in all of my new rows being fraudulent. We've requested 100,000 rows to be created, and we can see that after I hit generate, that table has been created. We've got 100,000 new rows, all based on that fraudulent condition. All that's left, take these new rows, append them with our original table, and create a new augmented table for training.
Okay, awesome. So now we've addressed the imbalance in the data. So I guess the real question is, did we actually change the model performance?
Let's take a look. So we find ourselves back in Model Studio. We're using now that augmented training table that we just created. Has 100,000 new fraudulent rows, so my model has a stronger signal to learn from. We're going to apply that exact same model, same approach, same process, just different data. And if we take a look again at that forest model, we can see our KS statistic is now 0.86. So we've improved our overall performance up from that 8.83 we saw previously. But we know the true story is in that event classification matrix. Let's take a look. Back at that 0.5 cutoff. Now you'll see that my model is correctly classifying over 53% of my fraudulent cases, up from 4%. And this is the key point. We didn't change the modeling approach at all. We just changed the data.
Okay, so now, because we've addressed this data problem, we've got a model that we can trust. But a fraud score on its own, really, that's just a score. It doesn't tell the bank actually what to do. Like, you've got to be able to combine that alongside of things like policies and regulatory constraints that I mentioned earlier, and things that we've actually learned from past cases, right?
Yep. And in fraud, that context is really going to matter because we know that patterns are going to evolve. We know our policies are going to change. And embedding everything into a decision rule is going to slow down our teams. It's going to increase our risk. And so we need a way to bring together those models, rules, and up-to-date institutional knowledge.
Okay.
And this is where retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, is going to come into play. In VIA, we can create governed document collections, things like updated policies, things like prior reviews. So LLMs are able to use that enterprise knowledge safely and securely inside of their AI workflow.
Okay.
So here's what that looks like. We're going to begin by first configuring how these documents are embedded and stored. And we're going to do that using popular and supported models as well as vector databases. From here, we're going to start pulling in documents from approved sources, things like those updated policies, things like those use case reviews. On the Collections tab, we're going to start grouping them into logical collections based on their use case. So in this scenario, we're building a fraud policy and case review collection. And this is really important for those downstream applications because now those applications can query relevant text, not everything that's available to them. So each of our document collections is configured with an embedding model, a chunking strategy, and a storage definition. But before we can begin using them, we have to validate these collections. And we're going to do that using a combination of predefined as well as auto-generated test cases, with our ultimate result being that we have identified and flagged our champion collection. So we've identified that collection, we've published it. Now, when that collection is published, our pipeline is going to stay up to date. If any of our documents change, we're going to regenerate that collection. So our decisions are always being grounded in the latest policy and guidance.
Okay, so Susan, now we can bring the fraud model and we can bring this document collection all together using SAS intelligent decisioning, right?
That's right. So I think of intelligent decisioning kind of as that orchestration layer. It's bringing together data, models, rules, and our LLMs. And at the end of that, it's also making sure that every transaction that comes through this workflow is treated consistently.
Okay.
So let's take a look at intelligent decisioning.
Let's do it.
So here we start with that forest model that we created in Model Studio. And we can see that both our required inputs as well as our generated outputs are going to be mapped for us. And our fraud score is being represented by a probability. Next, we're going to start applying business rules or hard constraints. And those are things that are going to help us automate a decision to approve, block, or escalate based on policy. So here you can see we're creating an example of a business rule where anything that cost over $5,000, we're going to go ahead and escalate. Now, oftentimes, we can lean on this automation and we can approve or we can block, but fraud is a little bit different. It often falls into a gray area. And when that happens, we need to look towards an LLM, using RAG, bringing in those documents to help us make an informed decision. So as Bryan mentioned earlier today, we're not trying to replace these deterministic systems with non-deterministic ones. We're just trying to combine them.
Right.
So let's take a look at the node in intelligent decisioning, and you can see that the first thing we're doing is pulling in that document collection. Again, those policies, those use case reviews. And from there, I can go ahead and start creating my user-defined prompt. Now, what you'll notice is that prompt also allows me to embed or include decision variables as well. So let's take a look at a transaction coming through this workflow. And in this particular scenario, we're going to have a transaction coming through, cost $8,750.
Right.
It's online. We have no card present. But we created a business rule. We know that this is about to get escalated because it costs too much money. And so we're going to turn to that LLM to help us make that decision. We're going to go through the process, and the LLM is going to turn a very thorough response. The recommendation is going to reference policy. It explains why the transaction was flagged. It shows the details of that transaction that were passed through the variables that we included in the prompt. And we've done all of that with confidence and traceability.
Yeah, all right, so Susan, just to recap a little bit for everybody. So we used DataMaker. We addressed that rare fraud problem. We retrained a model. We got a stronger, better model in Model Studio. And then with intelligent decisioning, we came along and we turned that model into consistent policy-aligned actions, all with human judgment supported by RAG that you showed us.
That's right.
Yeah, so folks, this is how you scale decisions without sacrificing governance and speed. Okay, Susan, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, let's give Susan a round of applause. All right, I think our business at the bank is done. So back out into the city we go. Now, as I'm looking out in the audience, I'm noticing that many of you have bought way too many souvenirs on our trip. And I know that there is not an inch of space left in your carry-ons. Now, how do I know that? Well, before our trip, I shared a detailed packing list in a spreadsheet, color-coded by category. Remember, technology dad. So we're gonna need to ship some of that stuff home. Our next stop is the post office. Now, in today's day and age, everybody has to modernize. So let's look at how an organization like the Postal Service might use SAS to do just that. Since data is the foundation of everything, one of the most important modernization strategies that often involves using open file formats like Parquet and Iceberg. But you also have to be able to query those formats and perform analytics. And of course, we know this has been the strength of the SAS language for years, but it's also where exciting technologies like DuckDB come in. We now have native access to DuckDB in SAS, and the performance gains that we're seeing from this are remarkable. But just as compelling, it's how it's impacting or reducing storage footprint, which is actually leading to a very different migration conversation with our customers. Instead of, man, this is going to be expensive and disruptive, it's becoming, this actually makes financial sense. But organizations, they're also interested in modernizing their data storage and their infrastructure. They want to be able to run analytics where their data lives rather than having to move the data to the analytics. And this is where SAS Speedy Store comes in. Speedy Store is a high-performance analytics store that gives organizations a modern enterprise-grade data platform. SAS pushes analytics directly down into the database, meaning that the compute is running alongside of the data rather than having to move the data to the compute. But it's not just about push down and performance. Data sovereignty is becoming a top priority for organizations around the world. Now, you all might be thinking right now, okay, this sounds great, but how do I get there? I just get overwhelmed thinking about a migration. So let me introduce you to a customer who has navigated all of this. Post & Bring is a Norwegian postal and logistics group that migrated from SAS 9 to Via and uses SAS Speedy Store to give them fast, scalable access to massive amounts of operational data that they manage every day. Let's watch a quick video.
Post & Bring competes in a very highly competitive market. We are primarily a logistics company with about 82% of our turnover from parcel and cargo, and only 18% from mail. If we talk about the parcel business, it's highly competitive, and you actually these days have to win the customer twice. First, you have to win the e-commerce customer, and then you have to win the consumer at the checkout. And that means that we have a much higher, more fierce competition than we used to only a couple of years ago. The upside, of course, is that there is tremendous growth in the parcel market, and that is, of course, an opportunity that we want to take our part of. We are a great believer in that management information is the key for us to drive improvement. And only when you can have good day-to-day insight into how your business is going, can you also look at what is not going as well as expected, and therefore be the basis for improvement.
Posten Bring's technology strategy is to be in forefront of the technology and innovation. To succeed with our strategy, we have invested a lot the last years into modernize our core platforms, consolidate our core platforms, and actually moving them to the cloud. That means the data are created in the cloud, and we can take advantage of new technology much more easily in a secure way. The VIA migration project was in this context a huge project, meaning moving the total technology stack and moving it to the cloud. The end result of the project was a totally modernized system operating with expected quality and higher performance.
We now are sure that all of our leaders, all of our 600-700 leaders daily get the management information that they need when they come to work. And the second thing is that we also now can have a much more live type of data available to our management so that they can do improvements or corrections. And third of all, I think all of the opportunities that come then from being able to utilize much more vast amounts of data will bring us much more opportunities also for improvements going forward.
Throughout the project, with the support from stakeholders in SAS, including top management, every week, every month, to the end of the project, has been a great success. This is a good example of showing how to work together, customer and vendor, in a real relationship.
Yeah, let's hear it. I'd like to introduce you all to SAS Principal Product Manager Christiana Lyken and Bendik Overgaard, Director of Analytics, Business Intelligence, and Data Warehousing at Post & Bring. Christiana, Bendik, come on out. Okay, great to see both of you. So Bendik, could you just start with maybe talking a little bit about why did Posten actually decide to do this migration?
Well, you know, Jared, there's three main reasons as to why we chose to migrate to SAS VIA.
Yeah.
Now, the first one is Posten has a cloud strategy. That means that we've moved most of our IT systems to the cloud.
Yeah.
Now, you know, staying on-prem with our data platform, all alone, it wouldn't make any sense at all, you know.
Right.
So we needed to move.
Okay.
Now, second, you know, we run a 24/7 logistics operations in Posten.
Yeah.
So we need to provide our business with fast and frequently updated data.
Yeah.
And our old data platform, you know, it just did not have the required capacity.
Got it.
Now, as a final point, by having a migration approach from 9.4 to SAS VIA, we could modernize without having to rebuild everything or build things from scratch.
Yeah.
So in our opinion, this would be a faster and less expensive way of modernizing.
Yeah.
And you know, in addition, by doing it this way, we could keep all the valuable code and solutions that we've been building in SAS over so many years.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, Bendik. Okay, Christiana, you know, I know you helped from this migration, or helped with this migration from the SAS side from early on. So can you talk a little bit about what made this migration, in your view, so effective?
Yeah, what made the migration so effective wasn't just the technology, it was the approach. Jared, today, a lot of SaaS customers can migrate 95% or more of their SaaS code to VIA. And like Post & Bring, many customers are getting the same level of success with more than just SaaS code. But the real question becomes, what's worth migrating? Post & Bring started with clarity.
Yeah.
They used content assessment to understand what they had, to understand what they used, and to understand what was important. And it's with this understanding that they were able to focus on what mattered. Getting to the cloud, preserving that business value, and better 24/7 analytics to VIA.
Yeah. All right, so Bendik, back to you. I know in your answer to the first question, you mentioned this notion of modernization. That was one of the benefits that you hope to gain from this migration. So would you maybe talk to us a little bit more about that specifically?
Well, we saw that we needed a modern and high-performance database as kind of the foundation of our new data platform.
Okay.
And Speedy Store just deliver exactly that. I mean, we are really happy with Speedy Store.
Yeah.
Now, with SAS Via, in addition, on top, we can execute SAS code directly down into the database for fast, good execution, and we don't have to move data all around the place.
Yeah.
Now, so in addition, with SAS Via toolings, we offer our business a whole range of new possibilities as compared to old platform. Yeah.
That's great. So, all right, Christiana, I know that every one of these migrations, they teach us something, right? So maybe what's one thing from this experience with Poston that you think we should carry forward to other customers, maybe customers that are sitting with us in the room right now?
Yeah, I think what really resonated with us is that the best migrations come from partnership. It wasn't always easy, no, but we stayed aligned and we worked through those challenges together and we kept moving forward. And it's this feeling of partnership that I want every customer to walk away with as they move to Via.
Yeah.
Benedicto, I'm curious, what was your perspective about the SaaS partnership with Post and Bring?
Well, I mean, what impressed us was not that everything worked perfectly from the beginning. It didn't, and it seldom does with the IT project. What did impress us was how SAS reacted when things didn't work out exactly as they should. So we saw a true commitment from SAS to make sure that this project was a success, all the way from top management and down to the day-to-day expert. And I think that level of commitment and focus has been crucial to the success of this project. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So, I want to thank you both for being here. Now, before you go, I know that there are a number of spotlight stage sessions that are going on throughout the conference where we're going to be talking a lot more about this migration and about Post and Bring. So I would encourage all of you to think about attending those. Okay, thanks again, Christiana and Benedict.
Thank you.
Yeah, give them a round of applause. Okay, we're done at the post office. Now, I would say that we're ready to start seeing more of the city, but I know better. This is not my first rodeo. You guys are going to want some snacks. So let's find a grocery store. Now, a grocery store is one of the most data-intensive businesses that you will ever walk into. Data is all over the place. Point of sale data, inventory, you name it. The grocery store needs a way to bring all that data together, to clean it up, to prepare it for analytics so it can put it to work across the business. And this is all done in SAS Studio. But actually, later this year, SAS Studio is getting a new name, SAS Data and AI Studio. Because frankly, we just didn't think that the old one was doing it justice anymore. Now, once that foundation is in place, though, SAS Visual Analytics can take over and turn all of that data into reporting and visualizations that can drive actionable insights for business analysts and decision makers. But once you have those insights, you need to be able to act on them. You need to be able to operationalize them using intelligent decisioning. But you also need those decisions to be available across all of the tools and all of the workflows that people already use every day. But there's actually a challenge that sits underneath all of this. You need to move faster. You have people at all different skill levels that are trying to get value out of your data, and there's just simply never enough talent to go around. And this is where copilots and agentic AI come in, and Via can help you with all of this. So to bring this to life, I'd like to invite out someone who's not only a thought leader in the AI space, but also a recent TEDx speaker, Marinella Profi, our global market strategy lead for agentic AI. Marinella, come on out.
Hello, everyone. Hey, Jared.
Hey, Marinella, welcome.
So great to be here. Oh, my God. Yes, and I am all about to take you through a world that we all understand very well, which is the grocery store. Now, grocery stores, Jared, are very similar to many other businesses and organizations, right? They have thousands or hundreds of products, constant demand fluctuations, and, promotions or decisions that could make or break profitability.
Right.
Now, today, over the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to show you how these businesses can now move faster from data to decision to action with the new agentic AI and copilots capabilities that we have built within SAS Via.
All right.
Well, let's get started.
Yeah.
And we will start from where every decision should begin, right?
Yeah.
Data.
Okay.
So here I am in SAS Data and AI Studio, where I want to do some data analysis with the grocery stores data that I have, so that I can pass those tables that are ready to be analyzed by business analysts and then store managers as well. And so instead of having to doing all the drag and drop manually within SAS Data and AI Studio or coding just by myself, now we are going to show how that experience has been entirely augmented with SAS Viya Copilot within SAS Data and AI Studio. So I'm going to start by asking my SAS Viya Copilot to import all the data sets that I have available in a CSV format in this case. These are data about point of sales transactions, store information, etc. After asking Copilot to mask some of the private customer informations, I want to go ahead and create 2 new columns into my table, the latitude and longitude, so geolocation information for each source. I'm a Python developer. Typically, I would drag the Python code, do all the Python coding manually, but now I can just ask Viya Copilot, and you can see here that it created that latitude and longitude by generating SAS, and Python code within a SAS interface. As a last thing, I'm ready to join all these tables and create a unique table that the data analysts are going to use within SAS Visual Analytics. Now, you can see here that SAS Viya Copilot understanding the context, the data request, the business intent, and is now also able to help you generate that entire data pipeline for you. In this case, we can run it and see that the final output table looks great. So we're ready to share that with the business analysts and do some further insights within Visual Analytics.
Okay, so can we see what insights we can actually get from these results?
Absolutely. Let's take a look. So let's jump into Visual Analytics, where here I'm starting from a blank canvas, right? I have the data that the data scientist sent to me from Data and AI Studio, that big table. And now I want to do some exploratory analysis to understand what are the products at risk of stock out over the next days, and what does the future for my product demands look like. So, typically for the passionate VA users in the room, we're bringing to you a completely new augmented experience with SAS Viya Copilot. We absolutely believe, Jared, that building dashboards should not be a boring and time-consuming tasks anymore. We have artificial intelligence at our fingertips, so it could actually be able to use to help us in generating those dashboards for us. So we have made that easier than ever before with SAS Viya Copilot into Visual Analytics. So let's take a look.
Let's do it.
Here, I'm starting from a blank canvas, and what I want to do the first thing, I want to ask my Copilot to help me understand the geographical distributions of the store and the associated profitability. So Copilot generated that map for me. And I'm going to go now and ask Copilot to do something that typically within Visual Analytics is time-consuming, creating 2 new variables. Now you can ask Copilot to create new variables for you and enrich your data set. You can see that in this case, it created daily sales rates and the days of supply that you can go ahead and immediately use for further analysis within the dashboards. So for example, in this case, let's go ahead and ask Copilot to create a visual that helps me see what are the daily sales rate for my products. Copilot here is really recommending visualizations and generating those for me. So in this case, I can see that the bar chart is the best visualization type that Copilot thinks to represent, daily sales rates.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and do a further step here. I'm going to use Copilot not just to generate dashboards or visuals. It is also business analysts that you can use to ask things like, hey, looking at the bar chart, are there any products where the days of supply remaining is less than 3? So Copilot is also able to give you ad hoc insights from your data. I can see that there are 3 products in this case that are at risk of stock out. And after asking Copilot to display those different products for me in a different color, in this case in orange, now I want to go ahead and ask it to help me predict the demand of my products. And Copilot is generating that forecasting model for me. In this case, you can see that it generates a forecasting model, which is a predictive model, and now already embeds that integration between all the other visualizations. So by clicking automatically lines, for example, I can see that the forecasting model displays the past historical data and the forecasted demand, which looks like we have a peak in demand for limes in this case, predicted. So Jared, this all looks great. My dashboard is ready. So I am ready to send this to the store manager to use this insights. I'll just ask Copilot to put some finished touches here, add a dark background, because that's how the store manager likes the dashboard, and a descriptive title to help it understand what this dashboard is about. And we're ready to go ahead and share it with the store manager.
Yeah, awesome. Marinella, I know I've seen this demo a few times, but I'm always just kind of blown away at the pace at which you're able to move through these things using Copilot. Okay, so great. We got all these insights, but how can we actually use them to make decisions?
Decisions, which is the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and see that in action next. Here I am in SAS Via homepage, and I'm going to go ahead into SAS Intelligent Decisioning, where using the insights from that dashboard, I have built a restocking decision flow. Now, what is incredible, Jared, is that now this entire deterministic flow, we can make this available within a conversational agent using MCP servers. What you're seeing here, by clicking Create a New Agent tool, we are exposing VIA capabilities as tools that any agent can leverage from their LLM interface of choice to call and execute. And intelligent decisioning really makes it very easy for you because it pre-populates description, it pre-populates inputs and outputs that already meet the MCP standard. So you just go ahead, publish it, and this flow is not just a data pipeline or a model or a dashboard anymore, is now a tool that an agent can invoke.
So can we actually see us use that tool?
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and take a look. So in this case, the store manager is using a Claude interface. So the store manager received an alert based from the dashboard where there is a restocking notification. So it's going to go ahead and ask Claude, hey, I received a restock notification on limes at store 27 in Dallas. What should I do? So what Claude is doing now is calling the SAS decision flow that we just published. And after asking for permission, because the human in the loop, it's always super important to be accounted for, it's going to highlight the justification, and the suggestion, which is go ahead, order approximately 1,040 limes, and it's not guessing or hallucinating, but it's highlighting the justification with clear variables from that decision flow, which is deterministic. Now, next, I want to go ahead and ask Copilot to help me, Claude, to help me log this decision for audit purposes. And what Claude is doing now is going to explain how this decision was made in an audit-ready purpose. Yeah. You can see here that Claude, clearly is showing in this case without exposing any internal IP, which rules were triggered and which events impacted this decision. And this is really the power of predictive and deterministic and probabilistic coming in together, driven by AI agents. Yeah. And finally, I want to go and do a last test. I'm going to ask Claude, hey, where was this decision executed? And just like that, you can see that Claude is actually aware. It knows that it's coming from SAS Via Intelligent Decisioning. And this is really so powerful, Jerry, because it shows how the power of LLMs, they're a great interface at letting you have that conversation with a trusted, deterministic environment, which is SAS Via capabilities in this case. So, yeah.
All right, super cool demo, Marinella. I guess we should mention, though, that there are actually other tools in VIA that people can leverage via MCP servers, right?
Absolutely, yeah, you're right. This was just an example. There are actually MCP servers behind many of the products that you have seen demoed today, and there will continue to be more because that is exactly a key part of how we will continue to deliver agentic and Copilot capabilities within SAS Via. And as a data scientist, I just want to say that I've loved the productivity gains that I've been able to achieve by using Copilot and now via MCP servers within Claude or Microsoft Teams as well to be able to interact with VIA capabilities. And if you are interested to learn more about all the agentic AI and Copilot's capabilities within SAS Via, we do have Spotlight Stage in the Novation Hub where we will have a session just specifically to deep dive more around these amazing capabilities.
All right, Marinella, thank you so much. That was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Let's give Marinella a round of applause and all of our presenters a round of applause today. Folks, I hope that you can see that at SAS, we are building around open standards so that AI can work naturally across every tool, every workflow, in every corner of the enterprise. Vaya is ready for the future so that you're ready for the future. Now it's time to wrap up our trip to the city and to return here to Texas. But first, I want you to think back to that moment a few minutes ago when we emerged from that escalator out onto the street. I asked you to look around at all of those businesses that were probably running SaaS. But right now, though, as we're sitting together in this room, I want you to look around at each other for a moment. And I want you to really take in the potential of this community sitting right here in this room. You are the ones that get things done. You are the human ingenuity that makes everything happen. The technology that you've seen today is like nothing that we've ever experienced before, but it's just the instrument. It only comes to life if someone knows how to play. So stay connected. Remember who matters. Use AI responsibly. And when you're having one of those days when your code isn't working or your co-pilots are acting like teenagers and they're telling you that they're smarter than you are, I want you to channel your own inner version of your technology parent, and I want you to say back to them, thank you so much for that feedback. You know, I'm going to put that on the list for our next retrospective and backlog grooming meeting. Thank you so much.
Please welcome to the stage your host, Dominique Moon.
Hello, SAS Innovate! Or should I say howdy, y'all? How's everyone doing so far? Amazing. Well, now that you've heard from our main stage speakers, it is my turn to officially say hello. I am a customer success manager at SAS, and I'll be your host for the rest of the event. It's going to be my job to just keep us on track and make sure that you know about all the things that we have in store for you over the next couple of days. Now, today, we talked a lot about AI and human ingenuity. And if your brain feels like it's still orbiting out in space, all I can say is same. I mean, Bryan zoomed us out to talk about perspective, possibility, and why people still matter in a world powered by AI. Then Reggie brought us back down to earth with a discussion around AI trust and governance. And finally, Jared showed us what's possible when innovation, technology, and human ingenuity all work together. Now, of course, our video discussion with Dr. Goodnight was very special. And it's also a testament to how much all of us at SAS appreciate having all of you be a part of our 50th anniversary celebration. As Jen Chase mentioned at the start of our program, this is a very special year for SAS. And we want you all to have an experience here at Innovate where you don't just learn from it or watch it, but you actually feel it. Now, to those of you joining us online, thank you for watching today's main stage presentations. You can feel free to drop now, but please join us again tomorrow. The SAS Innovate Digital Pass will give you access to all the great content from both days. Now, for everyone here in Texas, let's get started. Yeah. This is a great time to remind you to share your experience on social media. All those selfies that you're taking, post them, okay? And don't forget to download our conference app. This is going to be your guide to everything happening over the next couple of days. So you don't want to miss out on important workshops, demos, or details on how you can connect with people in the Brain Date Lounge. Have you guys heard of Brain Date yet? Yeah? Okay, great. Well, I know for some of you, you probably thought to yourselves, brain date, no, I'm married, not gonna happen. But trust me, it is not that type of date, so please don't make things awkward, okay? Brain date is just a great way to connect with people who are interested in the same topics that you are, like the responsible use of AI, or productivity, or whether you think you can make a better trick shot than the Dude Perfect guys. Which, by the way, you can't, okay? They're pros. While we're on the topic of Dude Perfect, let's go ahead and cover what's happening for the rest of the afternoon. After today's opening session, you can feel free to go to our Innovation Hub. This is gonna be open until 4:45 p.m. today. It's your go-to place if you want to network or demo some technology or just have some fun. And you don't want to miss out on our 50th anniversary zone for some SAS trivia. You can also seek out any workshops, deep dives, or roadmap sessions that you might be interested in for today. Just make sure that you are back here when our doors open at 4:30 p.m. because Dude Perfect takes the stage at 5. And I promise you, you will walk out of that performance asking, did that really just happen? If you've seen any of their videos online, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is going to be something that you will remember for years. And we'll even try to set a new Guinness World Records mark. Just make sure that you find a seat and don't stand in the back because you are a part of that Guinness World Record, all right? Come make history with us this afternoon. Again, that starts at 5. After Dude Perfect, we'll have happy hour in the Innovation Hub. Not only can you grab a bite to eat or a drink, but you can also catch the world premiere screening of our 50th anniversary documentary. We're going to have 2 showings going on at the same time in 2 different theaters for that, and they'll start at 6:15 and 6:45. Just be sure that you follow the red carpet and grab yourself a seat. Now, if you do miss our documentary this evening, you can watch the film on demand from your room in the Gaylord tomorrow. Now, before we go, there's just one more thing that we need to do. Let's give a round of applause to our SAS Innovate sponsors who have helped make all of this possible. With a special thank you to our Red Diamond sponsors, Microsoft and Intel. All right, thanks again for being here at SAS Innovate 2026, and have a great afternoon. Bye, y'all.